I've been using the iPhone 3GS for the past week. Yes, I've been using an almost 12-year-old phone, so you don't have to. Does it still hold up all these years later? Does it make me nostalgic for a time long gone? Could you use one as your daily driver? No, just... What's up guys, Tim here and welcome to my new channel where we will talk about anything and everything tech, but today we're gonna take a little walk down memory lane with this, the iPhone 3GS. Originally released in July of 2009, so almost 12 years ago, this phone was mostly overshadowed and largely forgotten with the release of the iPhone 4 in 2010, which came with an all-new design and all-new Retina display, a vast improvement over the iPhone 3GS's 480 by 320 163 ppi display. The 3GS was an iterative iPhone and the start of the S series of phones, which typically featured small tweaks and minor upgrades over the previous year. It shares the same plastic back as the iPhone 3G, with the main improvements including performance, with a 600 MHz processor, a 3 megapixel camera with higher resolution and video ability, voice control, which was a precursor to Siri, and support for 7.2 megabits per second HSDPA. The iPhone 3GS was all about speed, as emphasized by Phil Schiller during the announcement keynote at WWDC.
And that's why I'm really excited to tell you about an entirely new version, the iPhone 3GS. Now the S simply stands for speed, because this is the most powerful, fastest iPhone we've ever made.
At launch, you could grab one in 16 or 32 gigabyte models, and after the launch of the 4 in 2010, all the way up until the iPhone 5's launch in 2012, you could nab an 8 gigabyte model. I have one of those 8 gigabyte models, and I thought it would be interesting to see if you could still get use out of the iPhone 3GS in 2021. To be honest though, I didn't know what to expect. I've held on to this phone for years, but I've never really powered it up and played around with it. When powering up the phone, it demanded to be connected to iTunes, and with the death of iTunes a couple years back, with the release of macOS Catalina, I had a mini panic attack. Remarkably though, setup was actually quicker than on an iPhone today. Not surprising given the amount of things our iPhones can do nowadays. The only hiccup I ran into when setting up the phone was putting in my iTunes password. Turns out that just entering your password isn't enough, but requires the 6-digit code produced from any modern device set up with your account information. Once set up, I noticed another issue with my phone. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth didn't work. This is likely an issue with the actual antennas of the device and not software, and quite honestly, I'm not going to spend money on repairing this phone. Speaking of software, the iPhone 3GS was left behind running iOS 6.1.6, released in 2014. In fact, don't expect to find any apps capable of running on this iPhone, as most apps require iOS 10 and higher. With pre-installed apps on the phone, I didn't really expect a lot, but I was surprised to find that Maps worked well enough to find me and give me an overview of the steps needed to get to where I was going. Guided navigation not available here, so you really can only use it as a reference when navigating your city. I was still able to download music from the iTunes store, podcasts and videos I purchased could still be loaded onto the phone using the Finder on my Mac while the phone was connected. Videos from Apple TV Plus aren't able to be loaded onto the phone, nor is any music from Apple Music. The stock app also didn't work, so no watching my game stonk rocket to the moon. The weather app couldn't pull my location, which was weird since Maps had no problem finding me. It wouldn't even load locations I entered in manually. I would be greeted with information unavailable. For the basics, phone, mail, and Safari all work with a few small caveats. First off, I couldn't get visual voicemail to work, which may actually be an issue with the SIM I was using, a 7-day trial to Mint Mobile, which is a T-Mobile MVNO. Calls sound passable, and don't even try to use the speakerphone on this. I honestly can't believe we were okay with this back then. With mail, you're able to log into your accounts with no problem, but be prepared to wait for new messages to come in, as 3G is just awful. I know, I've been spoiled with 5G on the latest iPhones. And with no Wi-Fi available to me on this busted phone, I would get frustrated and end up waiting until I got home to read any messages anyways. Safari is a similar story to Mail. It may just be the speeds available with 3G, but I think it also has to do with the complexity of websites nowadays. Most modern websites didn't even bother appearing after loading, and the websites that did load were either broken or loaded at a glacial pace. The only website I was able to load in any reasonable amount of time was CNN, so there's that. To be honest, after the first day using this phone in the wild, I started to bring my iPhone 12 Pro along for the ride so that I wouldn't be completely helpless. I realize this phone is old, but I think a lot of the issues with this phone stem from Apple forcing iOS 6 onto this device. While today's devices have no issue running modern iOS versions for years after their release, the iPhone 3GS is running a 600 megahertz processor. 600 megahertz. And it only has 256 megabytes of RAM. While it does bring back fond memories of the new and exciting world the iPhone brought, the screen size and resolution and Apple's shoehorning of iOS 6 onto a device that honestly can't handle it makes the iPhone 3GS a nice piece of memorabilia, but not much more. I definitely wouldn't recommend you use this phone in your day-to-day life, obviously. With 3G networks being shut down around the world, this phone will be useless in due time. And that's even if yours has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, unlike mine. So that's a look at the iPhone 3GS in 2021. What's your favorite model of the iPhone? Leave it in the comments below, and don't forget to smash that like button. If you like this video and want to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to be alerted the next time I post a video. Next week, I'll be taking a look at the first generation iPad. Until then, I'll see you around.